Hello YouTube. I would like to share this little adventure I had with this gun, which incidentally I like quite a lot, and I almost gave up on it because of this issue. So this is an Artemis, won't focus, maybe you'll see it, Artemis P15 in 5.5 caliber or .22. It's it's a fairly, let me explain why I like it. So it's a fairly budget gun. It's not very expensive, but for its price range, I think it's quite accurate. I'm quite pleased with it, with its accuracy. I've had a Marauder which shoots like 2-inch groups at 50 meters, unworthy for hunting at that range. This will shoot slightly sub-inch groups at 50 meters, so 2.5 centimeters at around 50 meters, which for me is good enough. I like it because it's very light. Some may complain light guns don't make for good accuracy, but the upside to it, okay, they do move a lot, but being light, your muscles are fairly relaxed, so it does help in that aspect. Less tension in the muscle, less unwanted shaking. Being very light, it's very easy to carry around, and it's also very short. You can see I have a measuring tape set here. It's shorter than 70 centimeters. My one is a little bit longer because I made custom baffles for it. Let me show you. So I like the gun so much I made several modifications to it. Let me. So first thing I made, this is the original trigger guard. It doesn't have any trigger over travel. To my understanding, trigger over travel is a very bad thing for accuracy, because after you shoot, if the trigger is allowed to go essentially into empty space without any pressure back, it will impact your accuracy. So it's very good to have the trigger stop right after the sear releases, so that there's constant tension on the trigger, and this does exactly that. And take it off the mat again. This is a 3D printed piece, and you can see there's a little bolt sticking out there. You can adjust it, and it's so that when it hits the bolt, it's exactly when the trigger sets off. I made custom baffles for it. So these are the original baffles, rather roundy shaped and fairly large hole. This is probably, they make one set of baffles for all the calibers. So 6.35, 5.5 and 4.5, they make one baffle with a huge hole in it, and it's really round. It's not very good at doing its job, so I designed and modeled this one. This one is specific for 5.5, so the hole is 7 millimeters. They work much better, much more silent. They are a little bit taller, just a fraction, but there's 8 of them, so it takes around one point something centimeters longer. You can probably see that here. It is a little bit further up than it would normally be, making the gun just a little bit over a centimeter longer. I made this laser mount for it. So it's a gun I really enjoyed. And then one day I started getting inconsistent shooting and a leak. It would slowly leak. I'd leave the gun full, and after overnight it would be half empty. It was driving me crazy. I was able to pinpoint that the issue would be on the main valve here in the breech block, because I took off the shroud, put a balloon to it, and I could see the balloon inflate. So pinpointed to that. I didn't want to send the gun back to in warranty, because I had already, you know, fiddled with it a little bit. I wasn't comfortable with sending it back, and also knowing that, you know, I shot it very little. When it broke, maybe I had 200 rounds through it. So if in 200 rounds I get this issue, even if I get a stock replacement, it's probably going to break again. So I didn't want to go the official way. It probably would have been easier and quicker, but I just didn't want to go with that. So I took it apart and pulled out the valve, and this is what happened. So if we can get it to focus. Oops. The original, let's put it down. The original valve stem is made from hardened steel with a blue finish, and it's polished. It's got a high polish. It's nearly like a mirror finish. It works very well. This is a drill bit just holding the pieces together, and the stem would slide into the valve like so. But my valve broke in the spring retention thingy-jig here, and the pressure when the valve was closed, the pressure would squeeze it all, and it wouldn't leak a lot, but it was still leak enough to totally empty the gun in 2 days. And it also created for a lot of inconsistency, because as the hammer would hit the stem, it would push it all out, but this being free to move, okay, it on the stem it's tighter, but this would be the pressure would be able to push it back sooner than the whole mass of the thing would come back. So it created inconsistency. The friction wouldn't be consistent. I was getting lower power and inconsistent shots. So something had to be done. My first attempt was, okay, I'm a fairly handy person. Let's try and make a valve. So I have a piece of I think Teflon tubing, which I recovered. I cut a square out of it. I don't have a lathe. I put it on a drill press, and I turned this. It has the spring retainer a little bit longer, but it's very light material. I don't think that's going to make any difference. The problem is, I don't know if you can see, but will it focus? Yes. I don't know if you can see, there's the region where we have the valve seat, and then you can see, being too soft of a material, if you leave it pressurized overnight, the material would extrude into the valve seat, and it would, you know, create friction and like jam it in there pretty good. So at that point, when the hammer would come and hit the valve stem, a lot of its energy would be wasted pushing the valve out of the valve seat because of the extrusion with a lot of friction. So it would make very low power shots with very, you know, a lot of inconsistency. Not good. So I had to start looking into what would be. So this was a soft material. It would seal perfectly. So no problem with the hand pump pressurizing it, but it was not usable because it's too soft, and it had this issue that it would extrude into the valve seat. So I started looking into what materials I could use, and I realized that most valves nowadays are made from Delrin and some other even harder material. I decided not to go with that because I have a hand pump and I don't want to have a hard time pressurizing it. So I went with Delrin, but initially it was difficult for me to get the material. So I tried 3D printed PLA probably isn't the best material. It's probably too brittle, but I said, okay, I'll give it a go. I have a 3D printer, so why not? I couldn't get this to seal. It's made very similar to the original, but probably each time the little nozzle comes around and makes a little path of material, it's not perfect surface, and I just couldn't get this to seal with the hand pump. So then I found a place that would sell Delrin rods. I bought this 8mm Delrin rod, which is the exact same size that the valve is, that the original valve is. Where do we have it? Here. So there's no room for play, and my first attempt, I couldn't get the hole concentric. So there was no material to spare because the bar is already 8mm, so I 3D printed this little guy that would help me center it. Let me show you how it works. You would push the rod in there. This is probably a little bit less than 8mm. Let's use a piece of Delrin. So it fits quite nicely in there. You would put this flat on the drill press. You come in there and you'd be reasonably perfectly centered. So that allowed me to make, I don't have it here to show, it's inside the gun, but that allowed me to make something very similar to this. But yet again, not doing this on a lathe and, you know, hand shaping the what do you call it, the chamfer for the valve seat. It was very difficult to seal. I just couldn't get it to seal with the hand pump, and I wasn't prepared to pump like crazy because I don't have Viton O-rings in my pump, so overheating is it's, you know, very quick end to the O-rings. So I didn't want to, you know, pump really hard for, you know, 60 strokes or so, or maybe even more. And so I was a little bit desperate. I didn't have at the time I didn't have a compressor. I didn't have a scuba tank. Nobody would, I tried on several forums and Facebook to get somebody that had a scuba tank or a compressor to help me seal it. No answer back. So I was getting a little bit desperate. What will I do? And then SodaStream came along and found me a solution. So this is a SodaStream bottle. I had a friend with one of these lying around on the desk in the office because he wanted to recharge it, and that's how I came. You know, I was looking at the specifications because it looks very similar to the cylinders they have on the PCP air rifles, which come with cylinders. So I went straight away and I started looking at the specifications, and if you can see, it says pH 250 bar. So pH is the hydrostatic test pressure, which is generally 1.5 times higher than the working pressure. So this should be safe to around 166 bar, let's say 170 bar. This rifle is made to go to be safe to a full pressure of 250 bar. So I probably wouldn't be comfortable pressurizing this to 250 bar or more to use it as a film means for this, but filling this to 100 bar, which is, you know, just a little bit over, the CO2 inside would normally be around 60 bar, so it would be acceptable to have 1.5 times that pressure in any given time inside this cylinder. So 90 bar, 100 bar is probably, you know, way below the work pressure that would be for this, and very similar to what would be the CO2 here when it gets hot. So I deem it perfectly safe at that pressure, but this doesn't get me anywhere. But then AliExpress came along and I found this refill station for the SodaStream bottles. So this screws onto the bottle like so, and theoretically you should use it to as a fill station. So you would have your CO2 fill whatever, whether from a huge bottle or some other means, whatever. You would come in, you would screw this on. This would open the little valve it has inside. You would fill it up, and then you would unscrew it and let the pressure go, and you'd be good. But no interest in doing that with CO2. I put my hand pump to here and did the exact same with the hand pump. 20 strokes at a time, a lot of strokes. I filled this up to around 100 bar, and then using what I call a whip, so high pressure hose with quick release fittings on both sides. One would go here and the other would go on its original fill probe. This allowed me to give it a lot of air very quickly, and I managed to seal the valve, and that solved all my problems. Once the valve is sealed, no problem. The gun is now not leaking anymore and gone back to its original accuracy. Thank God. So this got my gun going. I wasn't gonna need to send it back to the local reseller for repair, and I wasn't happy with that, because whatever is the design issue with the original valve, it was likely to happen again, and I didn't want to have to, once the warranty is over, I would be paying crazy prices for these valves. What's the price of such a valve? I bought the whole Delrin rod for, I forget, €5, €8. I don't know what it is. It's a meter long, and these valves are like, I don't know, 1 centimeter. You would make 100 of them from this rod. Aside from the crazy prices, the original valve would come also with a valve stem for a price tag, when they were available, of around €15. Some shops as much as €20 plus shipping. So I didn't want to go that way. I said I need to find a way to make them myself, so if it breaks again for whatever reason, I can make another one. That's why I insisted in not sending this gun back to repair, and I must find a route to do it myself. I had a lot of difficulties. I was just about to give up and, okay, I'll send it back once and then I'll sell the gun and get something else. But fortunately, I was able to do it all myself, and this allows me to keep this gun and be happy with it. Thank you for watching. Please hit like if you enjoyed this video, and maybe subscribe if you like this type of content. I do a lot of DIY stuff. Shooting isn't my only hobby, so you'll find even electronic stuff in this channel, or anything related to my DIY stories that I like to share.